It was 1994. Jeff Bezos had everything most people could only dream of. A prestigious job at D.E. Shaw, one of Wall Street's most successful hedge funds. A six-figure salary at just 30 years old. A corner office overlooking Manhattan. But then, something changed everything. Bezos stumbled upon a statistic that would haunt him. Internet usage was growing by 2,300% per year. While his colleagues saw numbers, Bezos saw the future. He had what he called his regret minimization framework, a simple question. When I'm 80 years old, will I regret not trying this? The answer was clear. He walked into his boss's office and resigned from his dream job on Wall Street. His colleagues thought he'd lost his mind. Why would you leave this to sell books on the internet? They asked. Even his parents were worried. But Bezos had made his decision. He packed his car, drove cross-country with his wife Mackenzie, and set up shop in the most humble place imaginable, his parents' garage in Bellevue, Washington. Picture this, the future richest man in the world, sitting on the concrete floor of a garage, packing books by hand, using a door as his desk. No employees, no investors, just a crazy idea that people would buy books online. His first customer? A mathematician in Japan who bought a book about artificial intelligence. That single sale would be the first drop in what would become a $2.37 trillion ocean. But the real journey was just beginning.
With boxes of books piling up in his garage, Bezos knew he needed money to grow. But this was 1995. The internet was still a mystery to most people. Online shopping? That sounded like science fiction. Armed with a simple business plan and boundless enthusiasm, Bezos hit the road. He pitched to anyone who would listen: venture capitalists, angel investors, wealthy friends, even family acquaintances. His pitch was always the same. People will buy books online, trust me. The responses were brutal. Who's going to buy a book without touching it first? What about bookstores? They'll never allow this. The internet is just a fad, Jeff. Meeting after meeting, presentation after presentation. No, no, no. Some investors were polite but firm. Others were downright dismissive. One famous venture capitalist looked at his business plan and said, "This is interesting, but I don't think people will ever shop online." Another investor told him, "Stick to Wall Street, kid. This internet thing won't last." By the time he reached his 60th rejection, Bezos was emotionally drained but not defeated. Friends urged him to give up. "Maybe they're right, Jeff. Maybe it's too early." But something inside him refused to quit. Each no felt like a punch to the gut. Here was a Harvard graduate, a Wall Street success story, being treated like he was selling a fantasy. The humiliation was real. The doubt was creeping in. But what those 60 investors couldn't see was Bezos's unwavering belief in the future. While they saw problems, he saw possibilities. Little did they know, they had just passed on the chance to own a piece of the most valuable company in history.
After 60 crushing rejections, Bezos was running out of options. The garage operation was burning through his personal savings. Books were selling, but slowly. The dream was becoming expensive. That's when he made the most difficult phone call of his life. He sat his parents down, Mike and Jackie Bezos, and made an impossible request. "I need you to invest your retirement savings in my company." Think about this moment. Here's their son, who had just quit a prestigious Wall Street job to sell books out of a garage, asking them to risk everything they had worked for their entire lives. The amount? $245,000. That wasn't just money to Mike and Jackie. That was their security, their retirement, their peace of mind. They had saved every penny working as Jeff's parents when they adopted him, building their nest egg dollar by dollar. Jeff was brutally honest with them. "There's a 70% chance you'll lose every penny." He showed them the business plan that 60 investors had already rejected. He explained the risks, the competition, the uncertainty. Most parents would have said, "Son, we love you, but this is crazy." But Mike and Jackie Bezos saw something those 60 professional investors missed. They saw their son's determination. Jackie later said, "We weren't betting on the internet. We weren't betting on books. We were betting on Jeff." They wrote the check. $245,000, their entire life savings, handed over to their son's crazy internet book idea. That single act of faith from two parents would eventually be worth over $12 billion. But in that moment, sitting in that garage, it was simply the ultimate expression of parental love and belief. The irony? The professional investors said no, but the two people who knew Jeff best said yes.
By 2000, Amazon was flying high. The stock had soared from $18 to over $100 per share. Bezos was on magazine covers, hailed as the king of e-commerce. Everything seemed perfect. Then, March 2001 hit like a tsunami. The dot-com bubble burst with devastating force. Internet companies that were worth billions became worthless overnight. Pets.com, Webvan, eToys, giants of the internet age simply vanished. Amazon's stock price didn't just fall, it collapsed. From $94 per share, it plummeted to just $6. The company that was worth over $33 billion was now valued at barely $2 billion. In Wall Street terms, Amazon was dying. The media that once celebrated Bezos now declared him finished. Headlines screamed, "Amazon.bomb" and "Amazon.con." Critics called it the most overhyped company in history. Investors fled like the building was on fire. But the real nightmare was just beginning. With the stock worthless, Amazon couldn't raise money. Cash was running out fast. The company was burning through $1 billion per year with no end in sight. Bezos faced the most agonizing decision of his life: mass layoffs. In January 2001, he had to fire 1,300 employees, 15% of his workforce. These weren't just numbers on a spreadsheet. These were people who had believed in his vision, who had joined the Amazon family. He personally delivered the news to many employees. Grown men cried. Families were destroyed. The garage dream had become a nightmare. Late at night, alone in his office, Bezos wondered if those 60 investors had been right all along. Maybe e-commerce was just a fantasy. Maybe he had led everyone, his employees, his parents, himself, off a cliff. The boy who once packed books on a garage floor was now fighting for Amazon's very survival.
While Amazon was bleeding money and the world counted them out, Bezos made a decision that seemed absolutely insane. Instead of playing it safe and focusing only on books, he decided to expand into everything. It was 2002. The company was still hemorrhaging cash. Employees were terrified of more layoffs. The board was questioning every decision. And Bezos announced, "We're going to sell everything. Books, electronics, toys, clothes, everything." His own executives thought he'd lost his mind. "Jeff, we can barely sell books profitably. Now you want to compete with Walmart, Best Buy, and Toys R Us all at once?" But Bezos had a vision that nobody else could see. He wasn't building a bookstore. He was building the everything store. He believed Amazon could become the place where people bought anything they needed with just one click. The expansion was brutal. Every new category meant new competitors, new challenges, new losses. Amazon was fighting wars on dozens of fronts simultaneously. Toys against Toys R Us, electronics against Best Buy, clothes against department stores. The financial pressure was crushing. For every dollar Amazon made selling a product, they spent $2 building the infrastructure to sell it better. Warehouses, technology, customer service, everything had to be perfect. Wall Street was furious. When will Amazon finally make a profit? Analysts demanded quarter after quarter.
Bezos's response was always the same. We're not optimizing for short-term profits. We're optimizing for long-term customer satisfaction. But here's what nobody understood at the time. While competitors were focused on beating Amazon in individual categories, Bezos was building something much bigger. He was creating an ecosystem where the more you shopped, the better the experience became. The turning point came in 2003. For the first time in Amazon's history, the company reported a profitable quarter. Not just breaking even, actual profit. The boy from the garage had proven that sometimes the craziest decision is the right decision.
By 2004, Amazon had proven it could sell everything and make money doing it. But Jeff Bezos wasn't satisfied. While competitors celebrated small victories, he was already thinking 10 years ahead. The first empire-changing move seemed completely unrelated to retail. Amazon Web Services. In 2006, while everyone saw Amazon as an online store, Bezos launched AWS, essentially renting out Amazon's computing power to other companies. People were confused. Why is a bookstore trying to compete with IBM and Microsoft? Critics called it a distraction, a waste of resources. But Bezos understood something profound. Every company would eventually need cloud computing, and Amazon had already built the world's most robust infrastructure. Today, AWS generates over $80 billion annually and powers half the internet. Netflix, Spotify, even parts of the CIA run on Amazon servers. That distraction became more profitable than the entire retail business. Then came Prime in 2005. For $79 a year, customers got free 2-day shipping on everything. Amazon's own finance team called it financial suicide. Jeff will lose money on every shipment. But Bezos wasn't selling shipping. He was selling loyalty. Prime members spent twice as much as regular customers. They stopped comparing prices. They stopped shopping elsewhere. Amazon had created digital addiction. The empire kept expanding. Kindle revolutionized reading. Alexa brought artificial intelligence into homes. Amazon Studios created award-winning shows. Whole Foods brought Amazon into physical retail. Each expansion seemed random, but they were all connected. The customer who bought a book might stream a movie, ask Alexa a question, then order groceries, all within the Amazon ecosystem. By 2021, Amazon employed 1.3 million people across 6 continents. The kid who packed books by hand had built the most diversified company in human history.
August 2025. Jeff Bezos is no longer the desperate entrepreneur begging for money. He's now worth $244 billion, and Amazon has crossed an unimaginable milestone, $2.37 trillion in market value. But the sweetest moment isn't the money. It's the vindication. Remember those 60 investors who said no? Let's do the math. If just one of them had invested $100,000 in 1995, that stake would be worth over $200 million today. They didn't just miss a good investment. They missed the greatest investment opportunity in history. Some of those investors tried to reconnect years later. Awkward emails, "Hey Jeff, remember me? I was wondering if Amazon might be interested in..." Bezos was always polite, but the irony wasn't lost on anyone. The venture capitalist who called e-commerce a fad? His firm eventually invested billions trying to find the next Amazon, never realizing they had already met it and said no. The investor who told Bezos to stick to Wall Street, he watched from the sidelines as Amazon stock increased 21,346% from its IPO price. That's not a typo. 21,346%. But here's the most incredible part. Mike and Jackie Bezos, the parents who invested their $245,000 retirement savings, became billionaires. Their leap of faith made them wealthier than most of the professional investors who rejected their son. In his final letter to Amazon shareholders as CEO, Bezos reflected on the journey. If you're going to take bold bets, they're going to be experiments. And if they're experiments, you don't know ahead of time if they're going to work. Those 60 investors were smart, experienced professionals. But they made the classic mistake. They focused on why something couldn't work instead of imagining what would happen if it did. Today, Amazon touches nearly every aspect of human life. When those investors said no to Jeff Bezos, they said no to the future itself. The garage dreamer had the last laugh, worth $2.37 trillion.
31 years after that humiliating moment when Jeff Bezos was rejected by 60 investors, the numbers from 2025 tell an extraordinary story of revenge and vindication. Amazon today is worth $2.37 trillion, a value that surpasses the GDP of most countries in the world. To put this in perspective, Amazon alone is worth more than Brazil's entire economy. Jeff Bezos has a personal fortune of $244 billion, making him the fourth richest person in the world as of August 2025. Even after donating billions to philanthropic causes and losing $36 billion in his divorce, he remains one of the wealthiest people in human history. The irony of the numbers is staggering. Those 60 investors who said no missed the opportunity to turn $100,000 into over $200 million. Bezos' parents, who invested their $245,000 life savings, became billionaires. Amazon has grown 21,346% since 1998, a compound annual growth rate of 22.27%. The current empire speaks for itself. Amazon generates $670 billion in annual revenue. AWS alone is worth over $80 billion annually. The company employs more than 1.5 million people globally. Amazon is now the fifth most valuable company in the world. The lesson? Sometimes the greatest opportunities come disguised as impossible ideas. While 60 professional investors saw problems, 2 parents saw potential, and a young visionary transformed rejection into determination. Jeff Bezos proved that when you have enough conviction to face 60 no's, the yes that really matters can be worth trillions.